Welcome to Moving Forward, sponsored by MPW Mocklink TV and Mocklink Internet, online at mpw.org. Each weekday morning, our local talk segment brings you the people who are helping move our community forward. Let's start the show.
Good morning, AM 860, FM 95.1, KWPC. I'm Jordan Davis. Thanks for joining us this morning for Moving Forward. Take a quick moment to remind everyone, Mocklink is always Muscatine's fastest internet, and gigabit speed is coming. Mocklink TV beats satellite and includes video and music streaming. New subscribers save big even more when you bundle. Learn more at mpw.org. Once again, I'm Jordan Davis. This is Moving Forward on the Voice of Muscatine. We're glad to be here with you this morning. And joining me in the studio is Assistant Chief Mike Hartman. How are you this morning, Mike?
I am excellent. Thank you very much.
Well, we're really glad to have you in. Now, just yesterday, I was speaking to Dr. Kula from Riverside Animal Hospital, and she was telling me about heat safety for animals. So now we're going to talk about it for humans today.
Yeah, there are going to be a lot of the concepts are similar.
That's perfect. So we're already warmed up, and we're ready to hear all about it. So warmed up, good. That was unintentional. So we're excited to hear about I want to know what people can see as symptoms, like what they can expect as, what they can do to prevent it, what qualifies as a heat,
right?
As something heat related.
And that's perfect. That's exactly what we'd like to talk about today. Basically, what happens is when people are out and they get hot, they can, if they're not properly hydrated, all those kind of things, they can't cool themselves off. They can have some heat issues, I guess is one way to look at it. Probably the most mild form would be heat cramps, and I think most everybody has had heat cramps at one time or another. If you continue on with the heat cramps and you don't pay attention to that, you don't slow down, you don't cool off, then you can go ahead and progress into heat exhaustion and heat stroke. And when you get into the heat exhaustion, that's where we start to see you might get a little dizzy. You might feel your heart pumping really fast. A lot of times your heart rate will really increase. Your breathing will increase. You might feel flushed. You might feel a little hot. Those kind of things. Something else with heat exhaustion, that's a lot of times that's where you kind of say, hey, you know what? I'm really thirsty because I've been sweating a lot. You have to be careful with heat exhaustion because, again, if you don't deal with that at that time, then you can move on to what we usually call a heat stroke. And heat stroke is basically you get to the point where your body can't compensate for that heat issue anymore. And that's where you really run into the medical emergencies. That's where your body temperature can skyrocket, even above 104. Those kind of things. So
wow.
Basically, you're baking yourself from the inside out. With that, a lot of times with heat stroke, people will just start acting loopy, if you will. They might have hallucinations. They might be just kind of very confused, those kind of things. And they can even get to the point where, their breathing is really fast, really shallow, and the pulse again is going to be going just clicking right along. But it's going to be kind of a real weak pulse. It's going to be hard to feel because you have gotten so much of that liquid out of your bloodstream, out of your body, that you just don't have the blood you need to be kicking things around.
You don't have the same circulation that you can keep
right. You're losing a lot of the fluid loss, and when you lose fluid from your body, eventually it's going to be pulled from your blood one way or another. And with heat stroke, that's where somebody can actually go into a coma and those kind of things, which obviously are medical emergencies.
Absolutely.
So as far as, some things, taking a look at that, how can we prevent it? Well, there are some people that are a little more susceptible to heat issues. The elderly, the very old, the very young, typically are people that are more susceptible to a lot of different type of environmental issues like that. Something to keep in mind if you've been drinking a lot of alcohol, that can kind of kick you into that category as well.
Really?
I know a lot of times people they say, hey, it's really hot out, I'm going to kick back and open a cool can of beer or something like that. Well, the cool is good, but the alcohol, especially if you drink quite a bit, it if you will, it kind of messes with your body a little bit and makes you more susceptible to heat issues.
And some alcohols they almost dehydrate you a little bit, don't they? They're not a lot of them don't. It's not the same as drinking water. Yeah, there's a little bit of water in a beer, but it's not the same thing. It's a little bit different.
Right. It's kind of like when you talk about drinking a caffeinated pop. That's liquid. Yeah, but it also has caffeine in it, which is a diuretic, so you're not really getting as much fluid as what you might think.
Right.
So that's something else to be aware of, is all that. So the question is, well, what if I'm feeling a little hot, that kind of stuff? What should I do? Well, first and foremost, stop doing whatever you're doing that's making you hot. If you're outside in the garden and it's really humid out, the more humid it is outside, the more of an issue this is, because your body just can't get rid of that heat as well. So if you're outside and it's really humid and you feel like, I'm getting kind of hot, go inside. Go where there's air conditioning. Stop what you're doing. If your clothes are soaked with sweat, maybe switch out your clothes. Go with something a little more lightweight, loose fitting, lighter colors if you have to be outside. Those kind of things. And the big thing is water. If you can, try to pre-hydrate if you know you're going to be outside. One of the tricks with pre-hydration, though, is you have to start hydrating yourself several days beforehand. You can't just say, hey, I'm going to be out working in the field tomorrow, so I'm going to drink 2 gallons of water today. Well, that's better than nothing, but it's not going to prepare you as if you say, you know what, I'm going to drink additional water for the next week, and that kind of stays in your system longer, if that makes sense.
I see.
That.
So you can do a little bit of a build up to it. You're
Yep.
going to have. So I know that there's going to be a lot of walk runs coming up in the next couple of weeks. So folks, if it's going to be hot out, make sure you're drinking plenty of water beforehand,
Exactly.
not just the day of, right?
Exactly, and that kind of ties into part of it too, is not really training for the heat, but kind of training for the heat. If you're somebody that works in an office all day long and the temperature is 60 degrees, and you go home and it's 90 degrees outside and you pop right outside, what are you doing? Well, your body's used to that 60 degree heat. Now you're out in that 90 degree heat. If you're looking at doing a 5K or something like that, maybe turn the temperature in your home up from 68 to 72 or 76, something like that, so you get a little more used to that heat, because jumping from one extreme to another, not only does it make it more of an issue as far as heat emergencies, but if you have any underlying conditions, especially cardiac conditions, when you go from something that's really cold to really hot, that can put a strain on your heart.
Mm-hmm. It's it's kind of that same thing. You don't see 60 to 90 as that extreme of a difference, but it really does, because you can think about getting from a hot tub into the cold water of a pool.
Exactly.
Think about that feeling that you get in there. What a shock that is to your body when you make that jump. So it's all along the same lines there, it seems.
Yeah, exactly. And again, that wild card is that humidity.
Mm-hmm.
Once again, because if you're inside at 60 degrees, well, what's the humidity inside if you're running air conditioning? It's somewhat reasonable.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if it's one of those 90 degree days outside and it's 90% humidity, it's kind of like a double whammy, if you want to think of it that way. So, yeah, water is a big thing. Just continue to drink water instead of slamming a gallon or two at any one time. Try to drink a little bit kind of throughout the entire process. As far as sports drinks, those kind of things, it really depends on your situation. If you're out in the heat for a long period of time, you're doing extremely strenuous, then yeah, your body probably will need some of those electrolytes and some of those other things. But for the most part, water is kind of the magic thing with that. And that's one thing that sometimes I think people get into the idea that they need to drink sports drink all the time. Well, remember, there are some things in sports drink, electrolytes, that kind of stuff, that if your body doesn't need it, you're going to start building up electrolytes, and you're going to have an excess of that. So what I like to tell my family is, if you're out for a really long time, go ahead and kick in a couple of sports drinks. But with that, go ahead and have a glass of water and then a little bit of sports drink. Kind of balance it out a little bit there. But yeah, water is typically the magic bullet for a lot of this.
Water is when in doubt, have a water, because there's nothing wrong is going to happen if you have a water.
Exactly.
That's so people can expect. We're kind of expecting to see some hot weather after what we saw the last week or two, where it was 90 degree plus and humid as all get out. It felt like, I'll say one of those days, it felt like 100% humidity when it wasn't raining. So it's like being in a swimming pool almost, trying to wade through the air while you're trying to get back and forth wherever you're going. So I know that people need to keep an eye on the temperatures too when you're going outside. If you know that it's going to be a hot day out, you can get prepared beforehand. Right.
Exactly.
And what are some things people should have prepared? You mentioned lighter clothes, have water on hand. So, like, if people are going down fishing for the day, being on the water, I know, can be a little bit more dangerous too, because you get, but that's more for sunburns.
Right. Well, and the thing with sunburn is yes, you're talking about sunburn, but you're also talking about a lot of reflective light, those kind of things, which can heat you up as well. So yeah, hats, big hats, that kind of stuff. Maybe some sunscreen to help with the sunburn, those kind of things. But again, water. Something else you might want to keep in mind is taking along towels, some wet towels, or put some towels in a 5-gallon bucket with some water, or a cooler with some water and some ice, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, we've done that before. Put a bunch of ice and water into a cooler, and you put your drinks in there. Well, you put towels at the bottom of it, and then if you get too hot, you pull one of those towels out and wrap it around yourself.
Yeah, and that's one of the tricks we use with when we have to go out and fight fires in this kind of weather. That's one of the tricks we use is the old wet towel and put it on your neck, those kind of things. The nice thing about putting a towel on your neck is you have some of those large blood vessels that run through your neck, and by putting the towel there, you're really kind of helping to cool off that blood that's kicking around in your brain and back, that kind of stuff. So it helps cool you off a little bit more than putting the towel someplace else.
Makes sense.
And it's convenient, and you look really neat.
You look really. That's an important part too.
Exactly.
So what can people? So if people are experiencing these issues, at what level does it become an emergency? Does it become something worthy of calling, like the EMS service?
Right. Well, it's one of those things. If you have any question at all, go ahead and call us. That's why we're here. We can come out. We can assess people. We can kind of give some advice based on what we actually see versus based on what we hear over the phone or the radio. Those kind of things. Typically, if somebody gets to the point where they're starting to be confused, that's really where I personally would go ahead and call 911. Those kind of things. Obviously, if somebody's vomiting, they've gone unconscious, they're just very, very confused. Those kind of things. Yeah, that kind of fits into that whole heat stroke or getting close to that heat stroke. And yeah, that's when you need to go ahead and call 911, get somebody to the emergency room right away. Those kind of things, because at that point, it's unlikely they will be able to drink enough water in enough time to really help take care of this. And even if they can drink enough water, how long will it take for them to drink in enough water to offset what they've lost? Well, it's going to be quite a while. And that entire time, again, I hate to use the phrase, but that entire time you're basically baking yourself.
Yeah.
So what our crews will do, obviously, they'll show up and they'll do the assessment, all that kind of stuff. But one of the magic bullets we're going to use would be an IV of normal saline. So
that
basically, we're putting water directly into your bloodstream. And with that, the IVs we use, we do have some refrigerated fluids. So sometimes we'll use that to help cool people off a little bit quicker. Otherwise, just the regular IV fluids we have in the rigs. If it's 75 degrees out or 80 degrees out, maybe the fluid that we put in you is 75 degrees. But if your body is around that 100 degrees, 104 degrees, that really helps cool you off.
Absolutely. Well, is there really anything else that people need to know about what they can be doing to prevent the heat, and what they need to be watching out for here coming this summer?
Yeah, again, I go back to that prehydration, all those kind of things, and be smart about what you do. If you have something you have to do outside, and you can push it away from that late afternoon time period where we see the temperature spike. If you can do it early morning, late evening, something like that. Late evening you have to deal with the mosquitoes, but the temperature wise, go ahead and push it off to a different time frame if you can, if that's possible at all. If not, again, the light colored clothes, because they're not going to absorb as much heat. Just keep an eye on it. Stay in the shade as much as you can. Preheating, have those towels nearby, all that kind of stuff. So it's really kind of planning your day out. I know some people, we have a number of people down at the fire station that like to play hockey on the side, and it's ball hockey outside, and obviously the heat stress that the goalie goes through with all that gear is a little bit different than the guy that doesn't have all that gear on. And so we as a team help keep an eye on the goalie, and help keep an eye on each other, because quite honestly, it's my experience has been when I've had issues like this, I don't know if it might be partially denial. It might be just a fact that I don't recognize some of the signs that I should recognize. So keep an eye on each other. And if somebody looks like they're starting to get flushed, they're starting to get confused, that kind of stuff, they complain about a headache, say, you know what, let's just stop for a minute and take a drink and relax a little bit and try to stay cool.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. Thanks so much for bringing all this to us so that we can learn a little bit more about what people can do to keep safe in this hot weather that we're expecting to see. Immediately I was thinking about the fire department last week, and I thought, you know what, it would be great to have somebody come in and tell us about how to stay safe in the heat. And you guys were able to do that, so thanks so much for coming
absolutely.
in.
Anytime.
Yeah, it was a real pleasure. It was Assistant Chief Mike Hartman joining us here in the studio to tell us about heat safety and how you can stay careful this summer and not get overheated. Now, I'd like to say one more time, Mocklink Internet and TV are the best value in entertainment and connectivity and getting better with world-class fiber. Subscribers now, you will get fiber when it comes to your neighborhood. Learn more at mpw.org. Once again, thank you, Mike, for joining us here in the studio. It was a real pleasure.
Have a great day.
This has been Moving Forward on AM 860 and FM 95.1, KWPC, and the voice of Muscatine.com.
You've been listening to Moving Forward on the voice of Muscatine, KWPC, AM 860, FM 95.1. Thanks to our sponsor, MPW Digital TV and Mocklink Internet, the local providers, at mpw.org. And remember, Moving Forward, each weekday at 8:15 to learn how Muscatine is on the move.